I just read an article on another rule from the VA. Okay, and that this is going to be applicable in the sense of, would something like this actually come to fruition? And again, both of us agree, yes. We just don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but it's probably going to be close to what's proposed. But there are people out there that say, hey, look, it's already been a couple years, probably just be quiet and it'll go away. I don't agree. I think that this means you need to act quickly. And here's my little piece here. There is a new rule that allows the VA to adjust disability compensation to prevent overpayments for reservist and National Guard members. So if you know, and sorry to segue, but this is an important piece. Mm-hmm. If you are in the National Guard or the reserves, you can collect VA compensation. However, you can't collect like active duty time during your reserve time. So there's this double dipping rule that can happen. So what happens is sometimes veterans get overpaid. Then the VA has to take the money back. So they're working on this adjustment. But here's the piece that is actually applicable in comparison to what we're going through now with this discussion. In 2019, they proposed this rule to allow the VA to eliminate their disability compensation payments for people that go active duty from their reserve time, right? So this rule to eliminate disability pay while they're active duty was proposed in 2019. 2019. It's going into effect today, which is the middle of January. So it's in effect the middle of January of 2024. It got proposed in 2019. You're talking about a 5-year period. Mm-hmm. So here we are with this one that's been since 2022. So this just shows you that a proposed change could take many years. The writing's on the wall, and I think folks need to really pay attention to it and move forward and file as quickly as possible. Let's shift into the changes proposed for tinnitus and what sort of complications really that could pose to veterans that have not filed for tinnitus. Go ahead, Clay.
So looking at the proposed changes, tinnitus, in the most basic way I can put it, is a symptom of an underlying condition, right? And so right now we see the number one secondary to tinnitus is probably migraines, right? The second one is probably anxiety. And so what the proposed change, it kind of flips that and says, hey, well, if you have migraines or if you have anxiety and you have tinnitus, that's going to be a part of the symptomology of that condition. And this is for VA benefit rating purposes, not necessarily healthcare, right? So it's important to keep in the mind frame of VA rating purposes. Just like you have symptoms for anxiety, like panic attacks, like you might have depressive episodes, you might struggle connecting emotionally. Well, now there's going to be this tinnitus clause, right? If I had to guess, if I was in charge of where that would go, it's probably going to go a little lower on the poll because everyone has tinnitus, right? And so tinnitus is going to be a part of the symptomology of migraines and of anxiety. Now, there's two really goods and bads to this, right? The good part is, hey, it's not, again, in my opinion from right here, it might be easier to get migraines connected now. It might, right? It could very well not be the case, but it implies it's going to be easier to get migraines connected. The bad part is, hey, if you don't have any migraine evidence, and this is my number one question, is your tinnitus going to be the in-service event, which we know is required for every single claim,
right?
Be service connected. Is tinnitus going to count as the in-service event for migraines, for anxiety, for whatever?
Right.
That's my number one question.
And you bring up a good point, and I never really thought about it that way, as leveraging tinnitus in the symptom aspect for migraines. My thought process was more on the sense of I have this other condition that's now service connected, and that's just part of the symptoms of it, right, for diagnosis purposes. So I like that you brought that up, because it did give me another way to look at it. And so what I see now is, and I know you're aware, maybe our audience is not, I've done videos on the other channel in the past, and I think you've done them as well. The internal document, VA document, basically a rating aid that lists all the MOSs and AFSCs and the likelihood of causing tinnitus or hearing problems, right? So that then, based on MOS, because that would be the easiest way probably, unless you actually complained of tinnitus during service. And for folks out there that don't know where we're going with this, it's the nexus, right? So it's the link between your condition and your time in service. So what we're talking about is, okay, let's say that the VA eliminates tinnitus completely. So now there is no tinnitus claims that can be filed ever. Well, how can you leverage your tinnitus for, let's say, migraines, or for your depressive or anxiety conditions? So what we're thinking here is a road to that could potentially be, okay, well, my MOS problems or tinnitus, and because of my tinnitus or due to my service connection through my MOS or AFSC, I worked on jet engines, I was mortars, I was artillery or whatever. So now you have tinnitus, undoubtedly, but they're not going to rate you for it. But that is due to your time in service. Then later on, 5 years later, you're depressed, you have migraine headaches, and you can leverage that as all part of your migraines, right? They all trace back to being service connected. So that's a good point, and I think that that's could be relevant. I think that the worry right now for folks is, for folks that are still in, right? Number one, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to file for tinnitus. And for folks that are out that maybe have never filed, because let's keep in mind, folks, there are somewhere around 17 million veterans, right, in the US. About 70% are not utilizing the VA for compensation purposes. That's a huge number. So of that 70%, I bet you there's a lot of people that have tinnitus, right? Or tinnitus. I say tinnitus. Some people say tinnitus. I don't know. Tomato, tomato, potato, potato. So I think that the writing's on the wall that it's going to change. We both agree on that. I think that acting now is appropriate. If it were me and I had tinnitus and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to file a claim, but I have some other conditions that I'm going to file for too at some point. I just got to wrap some things up. I personally wouldn't wait. I'd throw in my tinnitus today and then still work on documenting all my other stuff, get all my evidence together, get my claim filed. Once my claim's filed and being worked on by the VA, I would then put in an intent to file for all my future stuff that I'm trying to gather up, right? The VA should probably move fairly quickly on a one-item claim, so you could get that adjudicated fairly quickly. And ideally, you get service connected for tinnitus. Now you have that in the bank, and you're good to go, and you can work on your other things. And again, my kind of rationale is we don't know when it's going to take. It could happen tomorrow. Do I think it would? No, I don't. But, I go into a casino thinking I'm going to win, and I don't. So, it's one of those things where you know what you have today, take advantage of it. Any last words on the tinnitus piece from you, Clay?